Decorating Pages is a podcast dedicated to taking you behind the scenes of the designs of your favorite TV shows and films. Each episode, I'll be sharing design stories from some of Hollywood's most famous sets, interviews from set decorators, production designers, directors, and actors about creating the look of TV and film, about their design inspirations, and stories that take sets from page to screen. Hello, and welcome to Decorating Pages. I'm your host, Kim Wanup. How are you? How are you doing? I am still not shooting our show. We have pushed again, which, I don't know, I mean, up until Veep, I don't think I worked on a show that pushed. Like, it was like unheard of. Ooh, you pushed, something must be really wrong. But I think the bar is set so high now for our industry and the creative to entertain that, you know, you want everything right. And so when they need more time for, not sets because we never get more time, for makeup or hair or prosthetics or, you know, anything, writing, you know, if you have good producers, you push and you make sure everything's right, and hopefully the studio backs you, and I believe that's the situation we're in now, so that everything will be right. What isn't right is, you know, they pushed, but they let everyone go because they took it as a hiatus, but kind of not done. So it's been very stressful in the past week with my crew, and not just my department, of, you know, halting work again. And, you know, you understand budgeting and everything, but it really breaks up our momentum, and you're dropping everything. And for me, re-tagging, reselecting, again and again on a show that I started in January. So yeah, I cannot wait to shoot, just to get these sets off of my list. It's really, when you want to check something off, it's, this is rough. So hopefully we will start shooting in another 2 weeks. So yeah, but in the time off, it did give me a little personal time with the babies. And of course, I can't sit still. We were looking for a house and found one, and now we're going to be moving. And so that's great. What's good for you is that I'll have a room, like an office, for podcasting, which will be nice. So maybe you won't hear babies crying. You certainly won't hear my neighbor's car. I'm apologizing in advance for this episode where you do hear some babies and you do hear some revving up of some hot rods. So sorry about that. So what's Wanup been watching? As I said, I've been a little busy trying to find a house, but I've really been watching a lot of The Office. Really just zooming through watching The Office again. It's so funny. There's so many little tidbits, and the way, you know, when they look to the camera, it really like accentuates the joke. And I am just such a fan of The Office. I don't know, I'm not really a fan after Michael leaves, but yeah, rewatching that. I started to rewatch 30 Rock again, which I loved the first time I watched it when it aired. It really didn't keep me. I got like 6 episodes in and I was like, I'm all right. I did see a fantastic documentary on Prime called Closer Than We Think. Radenball, he was a artist and illustrator. I forget his first name. Radenball? From predicting the future in his designs, like car design and farming and plastic surgery, and literally like the iWatch. Like his illustrations from the mid-50s predict all of these things. It's incredible that he was able to like zone in on these things. His drawings were in a weekly edition of Closer Than You Think. The illustrations are gorgeous, and I am sure that the Jetsons stole from this guy, because They were post-war comics that he was drawing in 1958, I think, and the Jetsons were after that. So just amazing documentary of his work. They also show a lot of Sid Mead's work, who worked on Blade Runner, Aliens, Tron. Really interesting and such inspirational drawings and color. And yeah, I would rewatch that. So again, Closer Than We Think. I think his name was John Radden. I don't know. And a sad little story about him too. So yeah, that was good. On this episode, I speak with production designer, creator of Art Departmental, Rose Lagace. We spoke in mid-August, and we were both starting back to work at the time. We started to talk about her show, the Baroness von Sketch Show, which is incredibly funny if you haven't checked it out. It's dark. It's my kind of show. Humor, really good. We get into talking about the ebb and flow of the work in Canada in the past decades. And we really reminisce about some of the tricks that we used to get into this business. Her work on designing shorts, which is something I haven't talked to a lot of people about, like designing shorts. It's really interesting. She's won awards for her work in like Patient, Close Your Eyes, Suffer, +1, and she has so many more short credits. And then we get into how she came up with the successful Hollywood art department insider website, Art Departmental. Incredible how she is able to juggle work, keeping up with the site, interviewing designers and decorators. Kinda sounds like someone I know. But yeah, I hope you enjoy. Dressing on a stage, sitting there. So I wish I was starting a new show. You know what I mean? Because it's fresh. This I feel like is harder. I got to get back into it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's kind of like the worst point to like leave and then come back.
Yeah, I don't have anything dressed.
You don't have everything in there.
You are starting season 5 or 4?
No, season 2 of a show called Tall Boys.
Oh, Tall Boys. I thought you were doing the
Baroness.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
no,
thought that's what
one is airing and then they're done. Like they season 5 is airing and then they called it quits or whatever. But Tall Boys season 2, and it's another sketch show and it's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I watched a bunch of clips of the Baroness one because I was like, I can get into this. I'm going to get into this. I like it.
Yeah.
So funny.
No,
and that was like a lot of location work, right? Did you have many?
Yeah, well, it was a very strange thing because, the first half we did almost all location. And then I think we did a few locations on the second half because they break it into 2 halves and then like block 1, block 2. And then we did... I think after we did a bunch of stuff in a museum and then we got out of there and then we had like this strange office in which we just turned everything in our offices into spaces. So we did build in our office because we did studio, because the other thing is like in Toronto and like in lots of other cities right now, there's just a lack of studio space. And so we couldn't get studio space. And so we were building in our like luckily the building was almost all empty from like other businesses. It was like like a tall office building that wasn't quite as skyscraper. Anyway, and then so there was a lot of businesses empty that had vacated because they were going to tear the building down. So we were able to take over like so many spaces and just build in them. And so some of it was a build, some of it was location, but almost all of our block 2 was like full dresses and the builds.
Oh wow.
Which was crazy.
I mean, that's a lot in one show.
It was like show. I think my initial set list was like 215 or something, and then we got it down and we reused some locations and just redressed it slightly, and like still like it was definitely wild. Like it was the most amount of decisions I've ever had to make every day. Like it was it was wild.
Don't you get
Luckily,
home? Don't you get home and you're like, I don't care what I eat for dinner. Just somebody give me. I don't want to make another decision.
oh yeah,
I don't
yeah. Well,
care. Just somebody feed me.
I had to get my crew to remind me to eat,
Yeah.
because otherwise that was like the last thing I was thinking about. It was just like I was picking like 5 paint colors in the morning, another like I was just I had to make every decision so quickly on every set, and then sometimes you'd be like, oh, that was a bad decision, but you don't have any time to rethink it. But like I remember picking a color of green and then being like, oh, that's way more rich than I was thinking.
Well, now you know.
It is what it is.
You're always gonna remember that shade.
Yeah. Oh, totally. I'm like keeping away from it. I'm like, oh, wow. But yeah, there was all kinds of like little things where it was like, you do the best you can with the time you have, and there were some sets I truly cared about, and then there was others where I was like, this is going to be okay. Like, it's just, it is what it is. It's on second for a minute.
Yeah.
These sketches are short.
Oh my God, they're so short. That's what I was like, oh, it jumps. Like, it just keeps going.
Yeah, that's why they had, like, originally, I think my script, like, the scripts that I got, it was, like, 192 sketches. Oh. Or something like that, which is why my set list was crazy. But usually the good thing was that they didn't jump around to another location within the sketch. There was a few that jumped around to other locations within one sketch, but that was rare. But yeah, we was still like 190 something sketches, and then that got knocked down to I think 165, maybe something like that. Yeah.
Well, did you I find when you work on something like that, you have to like it. Like, if you don't like the show, it's hell.
Oh, totally.
It's hell.
Well, like, because I was obsessed with the show beforehand.
Oh,
like,
nice.
Because I love the show. And that's why even getting the interview for it, I was like, well, even if I don't get it, I got to, like, sit down with the ladies and just have a nice time, you know? Like, and then I was so happy I got hired. But yeah, it was like, I really respected what they were doing. And I love the show. Like, I think it's a great show.
It looks like a fun bunch of women who are writing, creating, and starring, and like, they're doing it all.
Well, and they really walk the walk when it comes to what they're doing. Like, I really appreciated some of the stuff. Like, I mean, obviously it's a feminist sketch show, I guess you could call it. I don't know. But it's, there was little things where it was like, we'd never ever worked a weekend. We didn't do night shoots. But that wasn't because it wasn't for any logistical reason. Like, it was more that the women were like, no, I'm going to spend time with my kids. That's my kids' time. And you're not going to take it.
Boundaries.
And it was like, it was like
logical boundaries.
They were really like strong. Like that. I was like, it did make like, it was like, oh, it'd be great to have this location on a Saturday, but it doesn't, but then it kind of screws with all of our weekends too. And why do it? So, but yeah, I mean, I just really appreciated that. Oftentimes they were like as strong as the show is, like, you know what I mean? Like,
that's great.
The vibe of them. Yeah, they are who they say they are.
That's great. Being like logical and not putting this silly little world above it all, because I mean, I don't know. I've spoken to a couple of people just getting back to work, and it's like, what are we doing? Like, what do we do? Yeah. Like, you really, I don't know. I question, like, I build fake world, like, or I dress fake worlds, and like, who cares? And then it's gone. It's not anything. Yeah. I mean, it's on TV, whatever. Our work does live on in a sense, which is nice. But other than that, it's like, what am I doing?
Yeah. No, it's been interesting trying to crew, because like there was people that I would normally go to, and they'd be like, yeah, I'm not going to work. And I was like, okay. And then they were like, either disenfranchised, like just like not feeling it, or like for very good reason, they have immunocompromised people at home or whatever. And I was just like, yeah, cool. But yeah, it's been very different. It's like people are, we're getting swamped now. There's lots of work now. And then, so there's not a lot of crew base, but then you're also diminishing the crew base by like, there's very good reasons why people don't want to go to work. And it's like people just aren't feeling like their work matters sometimes. But I mean, I do think that, there is an impact of what we do. And certainly, like, I think being home as long as we were, like I was, binging movies and everything.
I know.
Just to keep me sane.
I know. It really did. I watched a shit ton of everything. So, yeah, I don't know what I would do without the content that was there. To be entertained, to laugh. Like, I feel like a lot of people just went to comedies trying to, like, or discovering things they wouldn't have before because of, like, well, I got the time now, like, let me do this, which I think is great for all television because you get and you're like, oh, I watch this, and this, and then you're like, oh, well, there's rerun. I don't know, maybe I'll try this. And there's just endless amounts of channels or streaming. And it's crazy. Has it picked up a lot in the last couple of years? Yeah.
It's sorry, has it picked up?
Like in Canada, like for content for streaming and like your networks and everything.
Yeah, I mean, we had like Toronto's. It's been weird. Like we were busy until about 2003. Then we had SARS hit, and then we finally had some people back. Well, and it started slowing down in 2001 after 9/11. But then, it was like we had this slow decrease to almost nothing because of various strikes around the 2007 mark. And then 2010, it started coming back. And so it's been a slow climb since 2010 to the point where, everything is busy every year. So like we have like no studio space left, and we're building studio space constantly, which is great. But it's like, it's busy now, and it's been busy the last few years. It really just kind of exploded because of the streaming boom and all that. Largely. Because I think there's just so much content to be shot. And in 2010, it was more the, 2010 to maybe 2017, it was probably more the, we had like a couple like a big feature, like Total Recall or Crimson Peak or whatever. We'd have that. Right. But then we would have like more like NBC Universal type shows like Suits or Covert Affairs or things like that.
Suits was there for a long time.
Pardon?
Suits was there
for a long time. Oh, Suits, they I think are they finishing now, or they finished last season? But they were there for a long time. And like I remember seeing Meghan Markle in the hallway, and it was just like,
that's crazy.
And now she's important. She's super important.
That's crazy.
Anyway,
she's crazy. I don't get it. I got a whole plot. I got a whole theory about all of that. So I don't. Oh my god, that's a different episode. That's a happy hour episode. But I mean, and so it kind of built back with those shows. Like Warehouse 13 was one I remember that they were like testing us to see if we could handle it and handle TV series of that nature. And then and then it's just grown since there. Like Guillermo del Toro now shoots pretty much everything here, and so I mean it's been good. Like there's no shortage of work. It's been interesting because it's like now it's about recruiting and training people correctly. Yes. That's key.
Yeah, exactly. And just making sure, because like people are going to move up quick when you have there's no scarcity. So a scarcity builds training. Like people want to learn how to do the job really well and great when because there's competition in the work, right? And so that being said, like there's so many great people working, and I have no issue with that, but we got to make sure that because we are so busy, we've really got to recruit the right people and train them up correctly. Like just get them knowing how we do this the right way.
It's with the, I would say the boom like the last 2 years of more shows, and not really movies, but more shows of there's so many people I don't know.
That like even in Toronto, I'm feeling that. Like
you're like, hey, hi, and they're like, hi, and you're like, oh, all right, you don't want to be friends? Cool. Like, oh, you're busy? Oh, okay. And then like I go around and then I look at their tag and I'm like, oh, all right, so you're on that. Okay, I don't know everyone. You don't know, but then you're kind of like, oh, hey, what's up? there's just so many new people in the aisles, as I feel like that lately. It's like, who are you? And then are, like you're saying, like, I I'm all for everybody like getting in the union and like moving up. Like if you can do it, like that's awesome because we need it. That's great. But yeah, the learning properly and just even some of the protocols. Like, is anyone cluing you in, like, helpfully, not as, like, a jerk, but, like, are they helping you out, like, hey, you should do this before that? Or here's how, learning how to budget and shit like that. Like, I hope that you're getting that. I hope someone's taking you under their wing, as someone did with me. So,
yeah. No, I know. I definitely feel that. It's like, I remember like the last few years, even like every January I get, a flock of emails to like meet up for coffee or whatever. And I'm like, because of where we're at, I feel like, I'm very much on board with that. Like I try to make time available because otherwise it's like, well, how are they going to find out to do it correctly?
Yeah.
Or what's the next step for you? Like know the difference between, all the departments and know, well, what is your goals? Because sometimes, they say, well, I want to get into the art department. And I'm like, okay, so like, what are you really interested in? Really what they're interested in is prop building. And, and you have to get them like closer to that. And then like, just guiding them where they need to go if they want to achieve certain goals or like really be happy because you want to do the thing that's actually going to make you happy.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you could be stuck in an office doing AutoCAD drawings or and you're just miserable because you thought it was leading somewhere else.
Yeah, it is. There's so many positions that you don't, they don't, someone just coming into a business doesn't, I didn't know. I had no idea there was a set designer and I just thought the designer did everything or like these are the people that helped them. Like, or you know what I mean? Like, I didn't know there was specific. This is what you do. This is your lane. It's so like but I don't know if it's harder now to get in because you're thrown into so much so quickly, which is probably a good thing.
Yeah.
Or like, I don't know, it took me years. And I mean, I had the like art department coordinator, like I was looking with yours, like you had the steps of like working through positions, and I feel that's invaluable because you learn what every position does, and then you as you grow, oh, they do that, and that's who I'm going to ask to do that or go to. But when you just like, I'm a production designer, I'm a decorator, it's like, oh, well, did you know like what an art department coordinator does? Or
totally. Like I know exactly what you mean. It's just you learn a lot by when you're working under other people, particularly experienced people, and you'll take on certain things, and maybe you'll discard other things. But I feel like it's so necessary. Like there's so many things I've picked up along the way from other people I worked for. Yeah. Even just like, not even people above me, but like, it's like, oh, well, like sometimes I'll like look at what my art trainee is doing or like my RPA is doing. And I'm like, oh, she's so much better than I was when I was doing it. I was like, oh, look how great she is.
Yeah. Look how creative. I'm stuck in these color palettes over here and she's, doing the world. It's like...
Well, like she's like a better common sense thinker than I am, or like, or she'll make like, she just gets to the next step so easily. And you pick up little things from different people along the way, and the more you work and that's what I appreciate about business is that, we aren't working with the same 10 people for 15 years or whatever, like,
no, we move around, we learn from different people. It's kind of great. It really is. Yeah. I mean, in a creative sense of being being able to work with all of these different people. Some people are dicks, but for the most part, everybody's cool in some way. And, you just don't work with them again. But, yeah. Yeah. So did you always want to work in, like, art department or in film or?
Like, I wanted to be, I wanted to get into film pretty early. Like, I wanted to get into film when I was, like, 13. but I wanted to be a director. Or like a writer director. Like I thought I would be like I don't know, like Woody Allen or something.
Right.
You know, I don't know. Like, and yeah, and then when I was applying at the end of high school, the applications were very specific, and they were wanting, well, what's your dream ideas and all this, and I was like, oh my god, like it was like the first time I realized I was like a 17-year-old girl with no life experience. Wow. I was like, what am I? You're right. I know kind of what I want to make movies about, but I have no life experience. And so when I went to college, I was just like, okay, well, I'm just gonna learn about the world, and then I'll go to like film school after that. And so I took like a general arts and science, and it had like I was able to take a little bit of everything. So I took a lot of history. I took a lot of philosophy. It ended up being that I took mostly art theory, which turned out really great. And I took some kind of creative writing course too, and a lot of film theory courses as well. And that opened my eyes. And then I applied again to film school, and then I decided not to go. I just was like, by the time you get your answer and you're like, I was like, I'm so fed up with school now. I don't want to go back. So like, because I was like, well, that's going to be another 4 years of my life. What am I doing? So then I was reading some book about how different filmmakers got into the industry or whatever, and at the time, and some people were like, well, sometimes you just need to jump in and be a PA or whatever. And I was like, I'll try that. If it doesn't work, I'll go back to school. Yeah. And it doesn't, like, nobody had told me, because I was coming in from like a small town. Like I didn't grow up in the city. I shouldn't say small town. It was like a city, but it was like a small city. But anyway, nice. It was, and nobody knew how to get into film. I grew up like just outside Niagara Falls, but it was like a smaller city outside Niagara Falls. Mm-hmm. And I had no advice. And so when I came,
you didn't have like someone like, oh yeah, he works as, a lighting guy, and like, there's
like everyone I told I wanted to get into film was like, good luck, you're crazy, Right. And we were like, yeah, okay, you'll be back here and you'll be applying as a nurse, like to some, hospital right. or something. Like that was like generally the feeling. And then so I remember though, I was visiting my sister at York University in Toronto, and because she decided to move here, and so I would visit her regularly in Toronto, and we went to a Spike Lee talk downtown, and he was so great in that, like, he said all the things I needed to hear at the time.
That's awesome.
It was like 4 students, and it was a talk that basically said, and he says this a lot, I realize now, but he said something about your parents, while they think they know what's right for you, they think they know what's best for you, they will always try to take the easy route with you, because they want you to be successful, but they don't want you to struggle.
Right.
But to get to greatness, you're going to have to struggle. You're going to have to eat SpaghettiOs.
Yeah.
You're going to have to those Mr. Noodles for a few years. Like, I don't know.
That's great advice. That's really great advice, really.
Yeah, and it was great because it was exactly what I needed. A little push. I needed someone to tell me, no, like, yes, you're going to struggle. Of course you're going to struggle. And that's the point, because that's like what ambition and perseverance and all of that is about. Yeah. And then I remember walking out of there, and I went for a long walk with my sister. We ended up in like Little Italy, which is really beautiful in Toronto. And I remember thinking, and we ended up walking past this video store, and this is the time of like Blockbuster and, all of that. And I remember there was this like more mom and pop style video store, and it was like nothing I'd ever seen before. It was like, being obsessed with film, I was like, I walked into this video store, I think, for any Canadians listening, it was like Queen Street Video or something, but the College Street version. And I remember walking in there, and I was like, oh my God, they have every movie I can't find anywhere.
Oh my God, gold mine.
Yeah, it was like I was like, oh, this is like Mecca. So I'm just like, okay, this is where I'm moving.
Give me my membership card. Give me my.
Yeah, I was
sign me up.
Okay, what's the street, and I wrote it down because this is like pre smartphone. This is like all of it, and I wrote it down on a piece of paper where I was, and then I went home and I told my parents I'm moving to Toronto. I'm getting into film. I'm gonna live in Little Italy, and this is happening. And that was it. And I was like, as soon as I graduate, and then I graduated, and then I moved that August, and not knowing even having a clue on how to get into film.
Yep.
And then I just looked on Craigslist. I was looking on Craigslist already just to find an apartment, and I saw there was job postings for film and TV, and then I looked in there and I was like, oh, okay, maybe this is how you do it. So which is
you're lucky you didn't get killed.
do that, especially now. Back then, there was still.
But I did it. I feel like I did the same. I just looked up. I think here it was called Mandy. They had a film thing, but I just looked up I
found out about Mandy later.
Yeah, Hollywood Reporter. I would just look in the back of that of all the productions starting up. No one.
Oh yeah.
No one really told me or my friends how to do it either. I don't know how.
Yeah.
So when you moved and you're looking for an apartment and you're looking for a job at the same time, which came first?
Well, actually, it was so, I saved up. I was working at a convenience store back home for all of college, and I saved up, it was very, Kevin Smith Clerks, it was
nice.
Just very, I was, living that life. And then, my boss knew I wanted to move to Toronto, and he had some buddies who worked at a convenience store in Toronto, and he was like, I'm gonna call them up and see if they'll let you work the morning shift over there. And I was like, okay. In Toronto it's very, but yeah, so I worked so he got me a job because I remember they let me start. Yeah, so I found my apartment on Craigslist in Little Italy, and then, which was the worst apartment, actually. It's just the worst basement apartment ever, because I had no idea what I was doing, or knowing to ask certain questions, and it was just
I'll take it.
Yeah, I was like, I'll take it. It's in the right street area.
Yeah, close to the video store.
And then, I was lucky my boss in Welland, Ontario, got me a job in Toronto at St. Clair and Yonge, which was a really nice area. It was a happening area for that time. And people these, I don't know if this will resonate with people in states. I know you guys don't even call it states, right? In the US? I don't know. But people like Gordon Lightfoot, who's a very a Canadian singer, and then Adam McGoyan, who's a famous Canadian director, and Mark McKinney from Kids in the Hall.
Oh yeah.
So we had lots of people coming in and out, and I didn't bother them. I didn't, but I was like, okay, I feel like maybe I'm in the right place.
Yeah, I'm seeing famous people. I got him.
Yeah, and then I would just ask around, how do you get into film in town or whatever. And and then people would tell me about Mandy, and there was one other website I can't remember the name of, but and then I would just start looking there. So I worked at the convenience store for maybe 6 months, something like that. But while I was figuring it out, I was and I remember, but those were really depressing 6 months, because I remember I didn't start the job, I moved, and then I arranged to not start working until mid-September because I wanted to go to TIFF, Toronto International Film Festival, because I'd already started going when I lived back home, and so I was like, okay, I'm going to do the film festival. I'm going to meet people. I was I didn't know how to meet people, but and then I met a few people. Actually, one of the people I met who was, because I decided to volunteer for the festival, and one of the people I met who was also volunteering and trying to get into movies, he taught me a lot, and we still work together now, because he's a first AD.
See that?
And, so you never know where you're going to meet people, honestly. No. You just have to tell people point blank, this is where I'm at. This is, what I'm looking to do. And oftentimes people will give you advice. Some advice is better than others. But,
I know that someone had told me in the beginning, you should have business cards just so, when you meet people, you can give them their number and everything. So I had business cards made, the first, couple months I was out here. And I was like, Kimberly Wanup, production designer. What asshole. I still have because I have a probably 1,000 of them, you know what I mean? Like, and I look at them and I'm like, what a dick. You just went right for it. You didn't even know. Like, I was just like, no, that's what I want to be at the time.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to put on there. That's what I'm secreting it,
Right.
really. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. You gotta meet people. You gotta, you know, introduce yourself and make friends, because you never know who's standing beside you, and look, you're still friends with that person like years later. It's crazy.
No, it was like funny when we saw each other on set one day, and you know, we were both entry level, you know, at the time, but like I knew him at least, and so, you know, I could talk to him and see where he was at, and see where, you know, what is he doing to move forward and all this, and that was really helpful to have people like that I met along the way, that not knowing anything.
Were you able? Did you PA as like just for production, or did you work in the art department right away?
Well, so my first job from Craigslist was, it was a volunteer position for a PA. It was like a low budget, like feature. And yeah, it was like a PA, and I was driving actors, and I was
That's the craziest thing, because I had a boyfriend at the time who was the same thing, and he is like, I'm driving this chick, her name's Penelope Cruz. I go, never heard of her. He's like, and picking her up like in his like neon, you know what I mean, like a shitty car, and you think back and you're like, man, they just let anybody pick up these actors. It's so weird. Absolutely. If they don't have a driver, you get a PA. Like, that's great. Absolutely. It's so great.
Yeah, I was like picking people up in my Ford Taurus, and you know, and it was just like, I'm thinking this car is just really crappy. but yeah, like I had to drive actors home when there was no one else to drive them home or whatever. And then like I took joy in my position with craft because like I was like cutting up the gum and like making sure it was all good. Like just like, you know, I was like excited about presentation. Anyway, they noticed my like detail in presentation, and then like, so every time set deck, or like, because it was non-union, it was just like, you know, a tiny feature, they noticed that I like to make things pretty, and they allowed me to work with set deck and props when there was like, they needed hands or whatever. It ended up being that actually because it was non-union and they had very little money, they had hired this guy to do set decorating that he was like a theater guy, but he was still, I don't know if he was still in school or he was doing some kind of other play. Anyways, it ended up being a constant conflict, and there was some kind of problem on set. And so one day he just left early, and there was still a set to be completed. And so I just did it because they were like, will you help us? And I was like, absolutely. Like, I'm just like a nerd, and like, I'm just going to do it. And I helped them, and they liked it.
Well, yeah.
And then after that, I remember that experience. I was like, oh yeah, this is like where I'm more like interested in. I was like, so I started asking every question, because I was just like, okay, well, what is this? Right. Like, what, like, who creates sets? Like, what do I need to learn? Where do I need to go? Like, I asked, and they answered. Actually, they were pretty great. So despite like it being this like nothing show, like a low budget show, non-union, and I'm not even getting paid, they
got paid in knowledge.
Yeah, it was like a film school. It was like a very early like film school thing where they just, every single question I had, like I was like, what's a best boy? What's a gaffer? Like, you know, because there was like all kinds of things I didn't know because I didn't go to film school, and they walked me through it all. And they said, well, you're gonna want to start applying for art PA jobs, or start like non-union art PA jobs, and then like, you know, if you want to try set dressing, try that for a little bit. And I did. Like, I tried everything. But, you know, I still, in order to pay bills, I had to, I worked as a PA, like for a little bit on, I remember a reality, well, it wasn't exactly a reality show. It was like a plastic surgery show where like they show it getting done. Like my boss was like, she was the director producer. Yeah, she was a director producer, and she decided she was going to get work done too. So as like, so that it would get filmed. And so I remember just watching my boss have her face lifted off And I was like, oh my God, this is horrifying.
Oh my God.
But I was like helping, set up the second camera, and like, simply like the DP would just be like, just press that button. And it was like super easy work. But I would be like, okay, just make sure it doesn't go, like, you don't, like the camera doesn't, I don't know, like there was just different things I had to pay attention to with white balance camera and all this.
What?
But it was like very simple show.
Well, while someone's having surgery?
Oh yeah, I would like have to just make sure that nothing happens with the cameras. Like we don't, like, battery power's fine.
I mean,
like,
I've heard a lot. I've talked to a lot of people, and it's like, man, did you ever think you were gonna research, storming the beach in Normandy, like in this much detail, or like anything like that? But I never heard anybody be like, yeah. And then I went into surgery with my boss, and like,
that was exactly it. It was like the strangest experience ever. And
did she look better? Did it work?
I watched her get shot up with Botox. I watched her get Botox. I watched a couple other girls that came in get like a lift, like a rest lift, and it was like this was like it was a paid gig, and I was like, okay, I guess if this is it. But it was very strange, and then there was another one that was more about exercise. She had two different shows. One was about plastic surgery and one was about exercise.
She wasn't vain at all.
No, she wasn't vain at all. Yeah, I'll refrain from my thoughts on her. but yeah, I mean, it was a very strange way to come up, but even on that, like, I remember meeting people. Like I met a couple people that I still work with today, like every show you just pick up a couple more people that and then you feel less uncomfortable on the next show.
Yeah, because you're just gaining the knowledge. You're just gaining the knowledge, and like only because I have your website open and your thing, just being able to like move up and learn the positions, it's invaluable. Like, whether you like that position or not, you still did it. Like, you still do it, and you learn it, and then you move on. You're like, I don't want to do that. Like,
oh, totally. I was like, well, and I remember doing a commercial, because I was looking for anything that was paid at the time, because, like, volunteer culture was really big back then. It's not anymore. But I remember doing a commercial I was like, okay, well, if it's paid, I'm going to do it. But it was, like, so outside my wheelhouse, where I was like, they wanted me to change the gels and like, and I was just like, I don't know how to do this. And then they would show me, but I was so like, it just so was not for me. And I was like, I am not suited for this ever again. I remember like putting my foot down with like, I'm never doing that kind of thing again. I'm not going to work with the electrics or like, it's so not me. No. And then I said like, put me in crafty, sure. Like by all means, like help me, like I'll help them, like, put out layout stuff, whatever. But on that commercial, they ended up just moving me over there because I was just so ill-suited for to work with the guys. Yeah. But, I slowly but surely figured it out, like what it was that I was very good at and what I was really terrible at. And working with lights and equipment and grip gear, and like that was so not for me. Like I was like able to just never take a position like that again. And and then like I was able to get like I still did some volunteer work with the Canadian Film Center. That was very, very helpful. I know that I guess like an equivalent is kind of working with the American Film Institute. Oh yeah, because they have volunteer gigs when you're just first coming up. You can like RPA with on some of those little films. It's kind of like that. So there's these short films that they make 5 a year, and a lot of the people coming up who want to work in production design in general or set decoration or props, they'll volunteer for those little shows. And then it actually introduces you to so many people, including union people, because the point is for them, the Canadian Film Center is run by Norman Jewison, and the whole point is to get union people working with non-union people so that they can find their next people to bring in.
Yeah, that's such a great program.
Yeah, and it's a great, and I recommend it to everybody who's really struggling when they first get out of film school, because it was invaluable for me that even though you weren't getting paid, you were really meeting the right people. I would have never gotten into the union without it. Right. And so I met, there was an art director now, and it's good because essentially, so the person that got me into the union was what we call a first assistant art director or set designer. in the union, but he was working as the production designer on these shorts. So he was getting experience to just be a production designer and on a short film. And he brought me on, and he liked the way I worked, and that I was like so gung-ho, like I was ready,
Right.
I wanted to do all the things. And he was like, you know what, like, so he brought me in as a trainee on a show, and then got me into the union. But like he found the people to reference, like I needed 3 reference letters, and he found that for me. And then the next year they felt like they just put me in as a coordinator because I was better suited as that in that on covert affairs. And then and then I worked for as an art department coordinator, a set tech coordinator.
You've done every position, it looks like.
Like I did a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to learn everything, and now it's like when I'm working with my set decorator and the set decorating team and with props, I do know to a degree, not the whole degree, but I know enough to know what struggles they're going through. Right. and sort of how to talk to them. And
it's a respect of the position that that you've done it in a sense, or like I have an idea of what this is going to take to get this done.
Yeah. Like I remember doing on-set props on a pilot, and it didn't even occur to me how difficult some directors are with certain props.
Never. Would never do props. I would never be on set. Props.
I was like, oh my God, I never want to do this again. Like, but it really gave me a lot of respect for the team on the floor, because we had to do this balloon gig thing that was really not a special effect, but it was enough of a prop thing that it was under props. But it was like complicated, and it was like you had to give the balloon strings to the actor in the right way, and if they and the actors kept messing it up, and then it was just like I was like, oh my God, this is too much. So but it was interesting. So I kept doing a lot of everything, and then designing every chance I got. That was it.
I mean, you have so many credits for designing shorts, which is like another vein in our world of like, I mean, you obviously like it. You get to do like 4 or 5 a year. I mean, that's a lot of work.
Well, also IMDb is so weird about the way they, it depends on when,
it depends when it comes out, I guess. Yeah.
Like, because it comes out in a weird year, and then you're like, I didn't do that. I did that 2 years ago. Oh. but anyhow, it definitely, I did a lot of them, and it was just to practice, while I learned from the bigger shows, and then just keep practicing, because the more, I would learn how to talk to people, how to deal with my departments, what I liked, what I didn't like layering on a set, certainly with set deck, it was just it was just all practice. And I actually really enjoyed doing shorts, because with shorts, generally, it's kind of like sketches, really, where it's you get to sketches, though on a TV series, it's just much more quick. But right. I mean, with a short, you might get 2 weeks to prep, at home, you're probably largely for free, but whatever. If you have the time and you're home,
we're all working for free in prep.
It's so you're prepping at home, and then you go in, but you're going to do one set, but you're probably going to do that set really well,
right?
And so even it's just because it's just one set. And so I found that oftentimes the shorts I was getting were much more interesting than the features, because the features, Canadian feature financing is just so difficult, and the budget's so low that sometimes, they're just writing homes. They're just writing very basic stuff.
They're writing what they can afford. Yeah.
And so you're not getting the more wilder kind of fun sets. And so, and I had tried music videos, and I tried commercials, and I do them occasionally, but I didn't enjoy them as much. And so that would have been a good way too, but I really didn't like commercials, and music videos I did, but the hours are kind of absurd. No. And, it just wasn't for me. So anyway, I mean, I would do shorts as my practice, and that was, but also so I still have shorts listed on my website because I'm proud of them. I think they were fun.
And they're beautifully done. You should put them on there. By the way, your website, which is yourname.com, I believe, which it's beautifully done, your website, by the way. I love it.
Oh,
it's so
thanks.
clean and
changing it. So.
No, I love it. But and on there, I think it's great that you keep the short. I would definitely keep them on there. I mean, you've got beautiful work in there.
I thought about putting them in a different section, but then people don't look at them. And just I will, because of the Canadian stuff, the only time you get to do period is really on short, because they can't afford to do a full period film. Luckily, sometimes I wish I was in the UK because I would get to do period more.
Well, that's all they do. You'd be doing Emma. You'd be doing Emma and Sense and Sensibility every other year.
Yeah, I remember this one guy who had moved to Canada, and he sent me his portfolio. And he moved from the UK, and his portfolio was all period stuff. And I was like, it was all graphics, but it was period stuff. And I was like, this is a great portfolio. The problem, though, is that we don't even do this type of work most of the time. So I feel like you need to add a little bit more contemporary in here, because he was just asking for advice about his portfolio or whatever. And I just just add a bit more contemporary in there, maybe a little sci-fi if you have it, but only because it was all period. And I was like, I just know that people are going to look at it and not realize what he can actually do, what he's capable of.
Right.
But yeah, it was just everywhere you go, it's just, there's different specialties of what that production center does. Right. And but anyway, I digressed. Try to remember. Oh yeah, shorts. I did a short called Liampa that I loved. I mean, it's not a perfect thing because we had very little money, but I really loved doing it. It was trying to be turn of the century vibes, but in the Tarkovsky-esque realm of the look of it. And how often do I get to texture a wall and make it feel like it's falling apart, or because the whole thing was it's super philosophical, the room was supposed to be dying as the character dies.
I mean, and it gives you probably such opportunity, like you were saying, to just focus in, focus on really what this is. And because as we were saying before, sometimes it's a throwaway set and you're like, this is what it is. We don't have time. I'm going to make the best decisions I can. But when you get the time and the focus there, it's so great. It's so great.
Yeah, and it's even if you don't have the money, you can really try to do something visually interesting. And for me, that was part of it. It was exercising my brain of how can I still make this interesting, even though I don't have all the money in the world to do it. And but because as long as you have time, which is what you generally have with shorts, is you have time at home to sort it out, to figure it out. You don't necessarily have all that much actual prep time on the at the location, but you have more time than you will on a feature or whatever.
And you've been nominated for awards and won awards for, it was Patient, was a short film in 2009. The LA
that was a short we did,
LA Movie Awards, and then in 2014 Directors Guild of Canada for the short film Vox and the short film The Day Santa Didn't Come, which I should have tried to get that one. That sounds interesting.
Oh yeah, that one was fun. I love The Day Santa Didn't Come because that one was shot in my hometown. In Welland, Ontario, and it was it was period. Well, it was period. It was 80s. Was it mid 80s? I can't remember, but it was 80s Welland, which is that's my childhood. So I feel so strongly about that one because I was I know it looks right. It looks.
That's awesome. Oh, that's awesome. Nailed it.
So we went for DGC. We won the what is it, the team award, the short film team award or whatever, with Patient, and there was another film, but that won some kind of award. But yeah, with Patient, that was a short film we did, and it was early on. I did that a while back, and we had to do basically a full build. And considering how little I knew at the time of what we were doing, I just wanted to make sure it still looked like a chain thing. I look back and I'm like, whoa, I would not do that again. It doesn't look good to me. But for the time and for the amount of money and, for everything we did, I'm still very proud of it because yeah, we had to build a counter. We had to build all the walls. We had to, we had to build everything. We kept existing windows, but
man and woman at a coffee shop meet for the first time at an awkward date.
Yeah, and it was, it was violent. So we had to build it because we had to put blood everywhere and stuff. Oh. And it was just a thing. And but the space they gave us was like an unfinished space, but we were able to use the window to the street at least. But everything else would have to be built. So we did that.
Do you, like, probably everyone is different for a short, but what is the prep, shoot, wrap type deal on that?
Depends on what it is. Like, you mean for...
Like, do you get, like, okay, we got, like, 3 weeks prep, it's going to shoot for a week, and then we wrap, like, 3 days.
Oh, for shorts? Yeah. I mean, generally, yeah, like, I would, I do less prep now that I'm older, like, because I can do things quicker now. I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Like back then it was just like learning everything. But I'm so happy that I learned on shorts. Like I would rather, it's better than learning on features and stuff when you're able to make mistakes in front of more people.
Yeah.
But no, back then I remember there was a short I did. I think it was called Green or was it chili and cheese? I can't remember. And I did 4 weeks of prep just at home because it was mostly teaching myself about clearances and product placement. And it was like in a convenience store. Mm. And so we had to deal with products and that were all going to be very much shown anyway. And so that was wild. But so, and then you would shoot for about a week or like some of them are 4 days. Some of them, most of them are about a week, like, or less. 4 to 7 days, I would say. Oh, 4 to 5 days. Yeah. And then, and then wrap is dependent on what it is you've done to the set. So it can be a week. Yeah, it can be like a day. It all depends. So
poor designers really have gotten. I think designers really, they're like, oh yeah, they're done. The actors have like said their last word, get out of here. Like, oh yeah, what are you doing? Like, there's nothing to design, get out of here. Like, they don't, you don't really have to wrap much. You're not in charge of like the stock or like, which is nice. You don't have to do that shit work that we all have to do. But like, yeah, you kind of get bummed like on the wrap.
Like, well, luckily, like on the shorts, I was in it. I was just involved in all of it. But on the features, I get like a day. Well, I used to get no wrap, and now I negotiate 1 day for sure. Like, it's like I'm not doing your show unless you give me 1 day to get out. Like,
I gotta get my shit out. You gotta pay me to get my shit out.
I'm like, well, because otherwise I was spending like, because everyone always had questions
and petty like, cash and like you got shit to do. Like. Yeah.
So otherwise I was doing like 2 free days often. So I'll do like 2 to 3 days wrap, but now I'm just like demanding one at least just to get my office stuff out and deal with my receipts. Yeah. And then, but I'll ask for more once I know whether they actually need me for wrap or whether I'm like immediately going on to another show. So that's another thing.
The feature that you did, A Space Between, that looks sweet.
Yeah, it was a really sweet little project. That one was Shouting Guelph, which is like a very agricultural area.
Beautiful. Look beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a fun little thing because it was really weird. That one was really strange because like, you get to work with people sometimes that you grew up watching, and that always is like a weird thing.
It's always
like,
weird.
The director was the Pink Power Ranger, like more,
right.
Mighty.
And it was
her Rangers.
Her first time directing, right?
That was her. She had done some shorts, and then this was her first feature. And so, that was interesting. And like, because I had her, on my wall growing up. Like she was like a poster on my wall. And,
that is really good.
I was obsessed with the Power Rangers growing up.
Amy Jo Johnson is who.
Amy Jo Johnson. Yeah. And so that was interesting. And, and then the Blue Power Ranger showed up.
Reunion.
They're still friends. So he was like helping us with like, he was helping the set tech team and like, because he just wanted to get in there. and
Oh my God,
help,
that's
because
so
he was best
great.
friends with Amy Jo, and I was just like, this is like wild.
Wouldn't it be great if like she only wore pink and he only wore blue, or like?
Well, he wore a blue t-shirt that day because he just knows how we feel about like
Oh
about
my God, that's
like
great.
and yeah, it was like really funny. Like,
Lean
'cause, yeah,
in, dude. Lean in.
well, they both totally lean in. They do all the, like, Comic-Con like stuff. Like, they do all those shows.
They're
Those,
probably
like,
making tons of money off of it still.
yeah, well, like, and then she moved. She's here because she did this Canadian show called Flashpoint. And, well, I think, and she had married a Canadian, I think, at one point. But yeah, and so she's done her Canadian shows and knows the deal. But she eventually still leans into the Power Rangers, which is good. Like, I think it's like, yeah, you did it. It's awesome.
Yeah, you gotta.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's when I was on Bones, we did a comic store, and the actor had previously been on the show Angel. And so
yeah.
I had gotten all this product placement comic books, and they had given me some Angel comic books, and so I put them like front like the first one, because I was like, oh, he'll probably like that. That's cool. And he did not.
Oh no!
He did not like that, and wouldn't come back to set till they were gone.
Really?
He just didn't want to be a part of that anymore. That was something that he was done with, and
yeah.
So
well, it's always like a balancing act of like, yeah, whether they're comfortable with it or whether they're not. Like, right now I'm working with someone who was very successful and on a show in the 90s. I can't say who it is yet. Well, actually, no, I said I was on Tomboy. Screw it.
Yeah.
It was Bruce McCullough or whatever. And he was, very successful on Kids in the Hall.
Right.
And, but yeah, like, okay, I'm not going to bring up Kids in the Hall. Because I'm like, I don't know. I mean, they're about to do another.
I mean, that was such a good show. I don't know why.
It was a brilliant show.
But like,
it's the best. I love that show.
And like, Angel was like huge. That's how he got Bones. Like,
yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. But like, you never know how they feel about bringing it up in the work situation. So it's like, but luckily, like with Amy Jo, it was like she would bring up Power Rangers. So I was like, oh, great. I don't have to worry about it.
I like that.
Yeah.
Now the real thing that you've got this whole career, you're working your way up, you're doing all these shorts, you're production designing, and you have a highly successful niche of art departmental. Like, how did you just like start that up?
Yeah, I mean, I never thought it would be like, I never thought people would see it. Like, like, I don't know, like, I thought people would see it, but just like, I don't know what I thought. Originally it was supposed to be, well, I don't remember the exact, like, it's hard to remember now because it was like 11 years ago, but it, like in 2009, like I said, so Toronto was in a really rough patch before 2010. And we kind of were hitting rock bottom after the 2008 recession. And at that point, I remember I was younger, like, I was young enough. And I remember thinking, oh, it's because I'm not skilled enough. I'm not like, I don't know what I'm doing enough yet. So that's why I'm not getting work. When I can look back now and be like, nobody was working. It was really tough. Yeah. It was really rough.
You're so hard on yourself.
But I really blamed myself for all of it. I was, because it's just the way I am. If I'm not working, it's all my fault. I did all the things wrong. Everything wrong.
I think that's all of our inner voices in this little world.
Yeah. And so at the time, I just remember thinking, well, I just have to, I have to learn more. I have to know more. I've got to take it upon myself to learn everything. And so then I was talking to my boyfriend at the time, and he was like, well, first things first, you really should put up a website, because this was like a brand new thing that everyone was doing, was put up a website. Yeah. And I was like, oh, but I feel weird about that, because it was just after, like, when, like, I grew up, you weren't supposed to have your real name as your email,
Right.
Like, it was
right.
You put in this phony, email. Like, there was still a weirdness of putting yourself out there for the public, for strangers on the internet.
Right.
But now that's totally the opposite. You're like, I'll tell you everything.
Yeah. Here's my whole life on a silver platter. I'm giving it to you.
Facebook has access to all things. And Google. But that being said, so back then I was way more shy about it. And so it was supposed to, he was like, well, you should put your work up on a website. And so I was like, oh yeah, okay. But then I did it. I created this WordPress, like the free version website. And I was like, I feel weird about this. I don't like it. It feels uncomfortable to put my work online. And then it turned out, and at the same time, I created an art department Facebook group because I couldn't find one. And I did that, and I called it Toronto Art Department, or something like that. And it turned out that just everybody from all over the world just started joining it. And I was like, oh, okay. Cool. Like, I didn't know what I was doing, but I was like, oh, well, if everyone from all over is going to join it, then why don't I take up Toronto? So I did. I took out Toronto, and I just called it Art Department, Film and TV Industry. And I haven't changed it since. But because I just was looking at the stats, and there were more people from the UK than there were from Toronto. And I was like, okay, so, but the Facebook group was there because originally I was trying to find every single production design article, every single set decorating thing, everything art, even remotely art department related, that I could put somewhere. So I was like, okay, I'm going to put it in the Facebook group. But then, like, as I played with Facebook groups, I was like, well, this isn't really the right place because you can't organize it, and right. You can't organize information. And then I had a spreadsheet. So then I created a spreadsheet on Excel. And then I was like, but this is still really difficult to maneuver. And like, how do I put the topics together, like, without having a million tabs? Yeah. And then, and so then it was like, well, I have this website that I don't even enjoy using, that I don't feel comfortable putting my work up on. So then I threw everything in there, and I remember I was doing Patient. I was doing that one that we got an award for. And my boyfriend told me we were looking for crew, and it was such a low budget thing. I remember putting something on Facebook, and I said art departmental help. No, like, not mental health, art departmental, like, like something like this. And it became a thing, and people chuckled. And now I would, like, considering, I try to not use any ableist language. And so, but that is where it originally came from, is like the play on words or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And, yeah.
I mean, when I first saw it and, like, followed and whatever, I was like, oh, this is, like, because we're all mental. And this is right. She's right. Like, this is...
well, because, like, in order to put yourself under that kind of stress and pressure, yeah, and whatever, am I off, like, in some way? But now I'm like, I changed it. I don't put it that way. I know that can be offensive to some people, and I took out all ableist language, but that is where it came from, was like this. I was asking for help on a film, and I said I used art departmental, and people were laughing because they thought yeah, anyway. And so, and this was like 2008 or 2009 that I did that. And, yeah, and then so I just thought, oh, okay, I'll take that. I was like, I want it to say art department in some way. I'll just put art departmental. And that worked. And, I still was just doing it to organize stuff. Because I thought, oh, if I find pretty artwork that I really love, then I'm going to put it in a post. And if I find, like, work that I really love, I'm going to put it in a post. Like, and that became, like, it's all funny now because it all sounds really offensive to me now in 2000, like that I called things certain things, like I called it art porn, and I called it, but design porn was such a, like, popular thing at the time. And so I called, like, all those post-production design porn, but now it's like, if I post anything like that, Facebook will take it down,
yeah. No, I know.
And people would report it as offensive. And I'm like, I totally get that. I actually, like, I'm in the process of changing all the titles, but I'm working on it. It's about halfway done, but yeah, anyhow, I used to like put everything into those categories, but those took off. Like those early production design porn posts did well. Yeah. And I didn't expect them to, but they did. And I did some early posts about how to tie up stuff in a truck, in the back of a truck, like a cube truck.
No, I mean, I don't even know how. When I started following, I was like, oh, this is so behind the scenes. Like, this is so great. Like, just showing, like, if it was a truck or your new office or here's my new space or, little things
Right.
like that of like, oh, she's really like letting in of what's going on here. And I always I always appreciated it and have been like, oh, it's a little inside look. And I think you got in really early, which
Yeah.
was like,
yeah,
like,
I was just Googling, like trying to find stuff and I couldn't find anything. And then I felt like, I was like, oh, are people like hiding the information? Because also I know that in Toronto at the time, because there was a scarcity of work.
well, there was a writer's strike in 2009. So that's...
yeah, there was the writer's strike.
Yeah.
And then there was an actor's strike.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was just Canadian actors or what, but we had two strikes very close together, and it kind of decimated us. We had one show going at one point. That was it, like for the year or something. It was really bad. People lost their homes. It was really bad. And so, but me not knowing what it was like, even for people far higher up than me, I would blame myself, but also, I just thought I could do more. I can Google more. I can find out. But then I also thought when I would ask around for help, for advice, people were not as willing to give it at the time because they didn't want to help people come up, and because there wasn't much work. They were like, well, why am I going to help this young person out when I work, And I do get it. I see it sometimes when there's lack of work in certain areas, because because of our departmental, I tend to pay attention to what's going on in all the production centers, really. And there's times where there's just isn't much work, and people don't want to be as helpful, and I understand everyone's trying to protect themselves and the people they employ. Totally get it. So at the time, nobody was really willing to help me, and so I just took it upon myself to start Googling, and there was nothing. And then that made me kind of I've always just been that person where if I can't find it, then I'm just going to create it. Because screw that, you're not going to keep me down.
Which is genius. Which is genius. And that's how things come about, because of necessity and or curiosity. And
yeah.
I mean, the way you've been able to just keep it going for 11 years is amazing. Do you do the website?
There were definitely years I didn't keep it up as well as I should have, and I just always felt so bad about it. And I even I'm working now, and with the pandemic, I felt bad that I wasn't working during the pandemic, but I was just in such a rough I was just this is the end of the world. The world's on fire. I was binge eating and watching Keeping Up with the Kardashians. And then eventually I started watching the good movies. But beyond that, I found it really hard to write during that period. And so I just put up a couple posts. But there's other times where I'm working, and on the weekend I'm just so motivated to just put something up there because I'm in it. Because when you're in it, you're really passionate about it, and you're like, oh, my trainee didn't know about this little thing, so I got to update the site and get this going.
Right.
The glossary came up because, people would ask about some things. I remember this beginner set dresser asked me what creaking was. And I was like, oh yeah. And then I looked up creaking to see what was up online, and there was almost nothing at the time. And then other things like that, where it was why do we not have these basic words up in some kind of glossary that's made for us?
It's genius. The glossary terms are genius. Because there are so much lingo that we have in our little mental world. No, I love it.
Yeah, and it's a lot of it is taken from other industries that we brought into ours, but at the same time, it's not everyone's worked at a graphic design firm, not everyone's worked at an interior design firm. I think my trainee didn't know what skinning was. Oh, we're gonna use the skin on the skinning the walls or whatever. And they didn't, So I'm okay, let's put that term. I have Post-its sometimes at work where I'm writing down words that I remember that might not, that people might not understand when they're first entering or whatever, and stuff that I forget sometimes. I'm just there's all kinds of stuff I always forget. Even there's still words I can add to the glossary. I'm always adding to it, but I think I'm going to change the formatting. That's the thing too, because the worst part of doing this, the art department stuff, is easy if you can find the time to get it up on the site. So there's always stuff I have notebooks full of stuff that I still have to put up. But and so I wish I had more time to do it. But then when I have the time, I'm just depressed.
Yeah. No, I get it. I don't know how you've been able to maintain it so well for so long. I mean, because I in this pandemic was like, okay, I gotta stock up on some podcasts because when I start working again, then it's like when we start working, it's like I don't have 5 minutes, and I don't know about you, but I'm not really good at social media, like to promote and everything. Like it's just so endless to me. It's not like you could like schedule a week worth of posts and then you're like, phew, done with that. No.
Yeah, no, you have to be on it.
It's on it. You have to constantly post. You have to constantly tag. You have to constantly do all this shit. And it's like, it's so exhausting. I don't have time. So I know that I think in my little world, like because I'm not at it, it's just like floating. I'm just floating. I'm not tethered to anything or getting attention or like I wanted to like, I should be tweeting in real time when, that person's show is on and like keep, I don't have time, man.
It's hard to keep up with it. Like I'm supposed to interview someone soon and I haven't watched the show yet, but I really want to interview that person. So it's like I've got to watch the show this weekend and then I have to find time to interview this person next week and then like weekend and then get it somehow up on the site before Emmy voting finishes. Yeah.
I'm with you.
It's always tough with the deadlines because I find that's actually the hardest part. I can keep up with almost everything else, but I find interviews are incredibly hard to keep up with. And especially when it's deadlines like Emmy voting and with Oscar voting.
Yeah.
That's hard. It's really hard.
And I'll have to say too, because you interviewed David Smith and I last year for our nomination on Veep, and when we were done talking with you, we both started texting each other like, that might have been the best like in-depth interview I've ever done. Like,
oh, good.
We were both like, wow, that was like a really long, like interesting interview, and like she asked us real questions. Like we were like, oh, we feel good about that. That was fantastic. I mean, that's what I'm
to do because it's like it's used. What I really find annoying is that oftentimes I understand that we're trying to. I say we. It's weird because my we comes. I work in the art department, but I also am part of the PR machine.
Right.
And so, we have to promote these shows. We got to get them out. I want great shows to win too. You got to get it out, but. You should, for me, for Art Departmental, the entire point is to help people from the bottom get up there, learn the things they need to learn the things that nobody's telling them because of God knows the many reasons. People are busy.
Right.
Of course, in scarce environments, there's jealousy and there's different reasons why people won't tell you things. But I think people need to learn. And if they can't learn from what I'm putting up from the interview, then what's the point? But then there's other things, other sites that are, larger, but they're looking at a quantity model of like, they've just got to get all of the interview people out. And they're not asking, some people have not even necessarily seen the show. And I won't accept an interview unless I've seen the show.
It's more cookie cutter based on they have to put it out. They have to, it's a factory in a sense.
They just need to roll it out. And they don't know what we do or how we do it, or they use all the wrong lingo and language.
That's a huge point. I'm glad you said that because we were saying too. Plus, when they said, Art Departmental wants to do an interview, I was like, I'm in. Because it's something from, like, when we do like a set decorator or if the Art Directors Guild or someone like, when it's someone in your, sorry, it's my neighbor's hot rod. If you can hear it. When it's someone in your world, it's so much more exciting because you're like, oh, we could relate. You can relate to me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, we were super thankful for that interview. And it comes across in a lot of your interviews, though. Like, many, like, interviews that for this interview, started to read all of your stuff, and it's like, no, you really get it. Like, and we're in it together. It's really great interviewing.
Yeah. Well, because I think it's very hard to, like, I'm not an Emmy voter and I'm not a Oscar voter, but I imagine, how do you decide? And really, well, voting is all a big, it's a popularity contest in some ways. But, and the work is also very varied and different. but what are you just looking at it, and how do you know who to vote for until you really know what they did and how the struggles, and like something
Yeah.
could look great, but it could have came as is, or
Yeah,
you should.
it could have been a location that you only changed the drapery. I don't know, like
Yeah,
and
but
and
but then
that's
again,
work
it's like,
too.
if it works, it works. And so,
Yeah.
but I like to just know. I like to know everything about how they got it done, because that helps the youngest person who reads my site, who's just in high school trying to figure it out, but they're interested, but it also helps the older one saying, oh, well, I didn't do it that way. Maybe, oh, that's an interesting thing. Maybe I could do it like that, or I ask that question next time, whatever. Like, people find different things that they like in the interviews, but I try to go as detailed as I can, because the site is not for the broad public,
No.
although they do enjoy it. It's interesting because like the Umbrella Academy one I did, they have a really wild fan base, like growing fan base that really just loves the show, and they found it interesting, and I was like, oh, it's because it's pretty detailed and specific about what our industry, and we use the lingo we use, but I find that the broad public doesn't turn them off. It's they find it fascinating. They're like, oh wow, that's what it really is like.
Yeah.
And even with Veep, like Veep has its own fans, and they came to, I can't remember where I posted, but I posted it somewhere where Veep fans would find it, and they did, and it was like people with Big Little Lies, same thing. Like they loved the sets, and they were like fascinated by that. So I find sometimes publications like Architectural Digest or Variety or Hollywood Reporter, they'll dumb things down for various reasons, and to keep the interview short. But it's not helpful for the actual industry people because it's too broad or whatever. But I just think that you can go detailed, you can go deep, and people will still get it, and you're still going to get a great article for everybody. I don't think it limits it to the niche.
I think one of the things, too, with things like an Architectural Digest, a lot of times we are mislabeled. Our titles are mislabeled because the person interviewing us doesn't really know our world. They do their best and everything, and I know it's confusing. My parents don't know my title. Like, so absolutely. I get it, but the responsibility, if you're going to put this in print, you should know that I'm a set decorator and not a set designer. Yeah. And so that's always like our little, like in the Set Decorator Society, we have like Don Quixote of constant mislabeling of set decorators. So, yeah. And it's just a little thing. It happens to designers all the time. They call art director, whatever. So.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, but I do think that they know. I do think that some of these publications do know our labels. They do know the difference between a production designer, an art director, and a set decorator. But I think that oftentimes I have found, and just through my experience with our departmental, that some of these publications mislabel us on purpose for the sake of SEO. So that Google...
True.
Yeah.
True.
And so this is part of it. It's like they think that set design, calling it set design instead of production design, set design is a more widely searched term. But, I mean, Google's on top of that. I mean, now Google is changing it so that intent behind the search is more important. And so I have found that it doesn't matter. You don't have to label things set design. But I wish Architectural Digest and other publications would stop doing that, because I think it does damage to the profession to mislabel us.
Because it's putting that word in there more than it should be, and then it's probably confusing the algorithm or whatever. So yeah. My mind explodes when I start talking about SEO. Like I'm so
I know.
I can't stand it. I hate it. I just want to post something. I don't want to have to think like, oh, does that up in the upper, where was this word? And like, did I use it 5 times? And like, it's, that's why 2 people look at my blog.
No, but I mean, I don't know. I don't know enough. I wish.
I don't either.
Like,
I really don't.
I don't. I'm not that good at it, and I'm still figuring it out. But I mean,
but you have thousands. You have like 11,000 followers on Twitter, and then oh damn it, I just had it up there. And then you got 10,000 followers on Art Departmental. So you're doing it right.
I mean, but I'm doing it right, but I think it's just the amount of time I've been at it. But also, I'm much better at social media than I am at SEO. We have good numbers, like no question. But I'm always looking at like how I could do better, because my main thing is like it's not a vanity thing of like how much I have, but it's like how many people, like, are the right people getting to the right article?
Right.
Because when I was younger, their articles may have existed, but I couldn't find them. I
think too, because not many people go past the first page of Google. Do you know what I mean? Like, if it's not on that first page, let's try again. I think that's a huge problem.
It used to be that like no matter what, Variety and Hollywood Reporter and Architectural Digest would be on the top. But I think Google has changed it up a little bit, and it's good, because I think that people who specialize in this kind of information should be, you should be able to find their information, because it's the correct information, or at least closer to the correct information. I will admit I've made mistakes too. I'm learning as I go here, but as is everybody. But I mean, I think there's a better way. I'm trying. I'm learning SEO. I'm learning to do it better. I'm trying. My main goal is just to get the information to the people who need it, and however I have to get that done, I try my best. But I mean, I wish I could do more. I wish there was 3 of me. I know. But we try pretty hard.
I think it's fantastic. I mean, the way you've been able to maintain it, as I said, and like, it's beautifully done. I mean, all of your pictures, like all of your, I mean, as an art department person, it's just beautifully done and easy to, it has a great flow. So you're doing all of this? Like, how do you do this? I mean, I have Wix, and whatever template they throw up, I'm like, I'm in. Like, I don't know how to do any of this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was so unhappy. So
you learned web design somewhere a little bit here and there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because I was so unhappy with the first, I did everything wrong in the beginning. I did the free version of WordPress. I didn't have a self-hosted WordPress. And that meant that, you can't even use Google Analytics if you use that.
Right.
So you can't do SEO for the most part. Like you can and you can't. Like if you know how to do it, you can try, but like you can't use plugins, you can't use all this stuff that will help you make a better site. The themes are very limited in the free version.
Right.
So I checked every single free theme back in the day, and I didn't like any of them, but they were all right. They did what they did. And then, but as the site grew, so did web design. Web design's changed a lot. And at some point around probably 2014, 2015, I was just so unhappy with the site. So I barely was posting because I thought, I don't want people to see this ugly website. I remember thinking that. I was just like, I put up a great post and I was like, this is a great post that I really liked. And then I was like, but it's on this ugly website. And then I was like, I have to figure out how I changed this website, because I couldn't figure out how. I was just so with tech stuff, I just didn't know what I was doing. And then I I figured out that I was supposed to have a self-hosted website on WordPress. And that, yes, it costs more money per year, but it's worth it because you get all the, all the fixins. You get all the plugins. And so then I did that, and I looked into Squarespace at the time, decided I didn't like that. Wix wasn't as, I don't know if it probably existed, but I didn't really know about it at that time. And then eventually I decided enough was enough. 2017, I decided not to take on work because I had done a few jobs in a row, and I was exhausted. I did them back to back. And so I hadn't touched the site, and I don't even know if I even touched it that year, barely. I always kept up my social media, and that I found easy.
Yeah.
I could do it on set, bathroom, whatever I had to do, I could get it up. But but actually posting was difficult, and I hated posting to that website because it was ugly. And then, so then I took the site down. I think it was like February or March in 2017. And, if I did that all over again, it would be, different, because I wouldn't even take it down. I know how to do it now, where you can keep the site up, but then be building a brand new site on the side.
Right.
But I didn't know how to do that then. So I took it all down, and then I learned a lot during that period. And I thought I could get it done in 3 months. And no, that was not possible because I was a novice. I just did not know what I was doing. And then so it didn't come back up until maybe July 2017, something like that, end of June or end of July. And even then, that was like a learning curve. But I had all these posts. I had canned all these posts that I had done, and I was so proud of these posts. But I found a new theme because I was able to use the paid version. I bought a theme that was better, and I bought a theme that I felt like would work for the type of stuff we were doing. And then I just made adjustments to make sure that it matched the new branding. And I had a graphic designer in the UK help me because I still wanted to keep the circles that I had on the original logo.
Yeah.
But I didn't know how to do it. And I still, like, even by itself, I'm like, I still think there's another rebrand that'll happen in the next couple of years. But I thought for what we were doing, and considering I was doing it all by myself practically, I thought the branding worked. I like the colors, I was like, okay, this is just going to have to work. I'm going to roll with like the colors largely used in Handmaid's Tale and go from.
Well, it's funny because your top thing right now is
right now is a Handmaid's Tale thing. Cause whenever I put that because it really matches my branding a lot of the time.
It's perfect.
And so I'm just like, okay, that's going to work for now. I do intend on redoing the website again and rebranding when I'm just going to put more money into it, but it's nonprofit. We're not making any money. I tried ads earlier this year to see how I felt about it, and I felt icky. Well, at least with the ads that were there, it was like I have to figure out how to do that.
Yeah, there is all that like AdSense, and you put stuff. I don't know how to do it. And then I
tried AdSense once, and I didn't like that because you're making pennies. It's not even worth annoying the public for. So I tried this other thing that you made a bit more money because I want the site to pay for itself, so I can hire writers, I can hire someone to deal with the SEO, I can hire someone to take care of this.
Yeah.
Because as it grows, there's more to take care of, and every year we're growing, and it's just like scary because I know there's a point. It's like even with newsletters. The more newsletter subscribers you have, the more you have to pay for it. And, and so then it's like, okay, I've got to get to a point where the site is like self-sufficient, and I'm figuring that out because ads are new for me and I don't know what I'm doing with it. And so now I'm figuring that out. That's like a new thing. And I took ads off the site during the pandemic. I didn't think it was worth it. And, whatever, I'll wait until I have time in like maybe January again, because that's the thing, it's slow in winter here. And like every time it's winter, it's like from mid-December till like mid-February, March.
But that's like Oscar time. That's when you're busy.
And that's Oscar's time, and that's why I tend to be able to get things up during that time, or at least I try. This year was tough because I had a million. This was the worst year ever, just because I had all kinds of stuff happen. But next, like I'm hoping. Well, we'll see even what Oscar season looks like this year.
Oh, I know. I think it's going to be so interesting.
Just Tenet is going to win everything just because it's Christopher Nolan is the only person who's really
because he let it out in the AMC theaters where you can buy a ticket in the US for 15 cents. Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's like, so I'm like, what is even going to get nominated? Like, what are we looking at here? So that should be interesting. I don't know what Oscar season.
I think they're holding everything till December, or like really like last minute, November, December. Yeah. And I think that they'll let out some stuff. But I feel as part of like that movie industry, I don't hardly ever even see movies anymore, and that's not. I mean, it's just I don't know. The last thing I saw in the theaters was Star Wars in January.
Oh, really?
And then, I don't know when I'll be back.
I try to keep up with it, and but like mostly because I'm just obsessed, but with movies. But
I used to get to go to all the screeners, or the previews and everything, and they would like a Q&A with the actors. Like that was like my jam. That was like Tuesday night. Like I had a schedule whenever they had the screeners, and then I have babies and I can't do anything.
Oh yeah. Well, that's it. It's like, it's all based on the amount of time you have when you're off. It's like, right now, I'm kind of lucky that I don't have a lot. I mean, I have a personal life, but like, it's not crazy busy. It's, I don't have kids, so that's easy. Yeah. I'm able to just keep up with stuff for the most part, but I don't get much of a life outside. Like,
well, none of us do.
have
I mean,
these, but it's like, but it's always funny when a producer, like, you make friends with the producer or the director or whatever, and they're like, oh, so like, what do you do on weekends or whatever? I work on my work. Like, I work on a blog about my work.
Yeah.
That's my biggest hobby. I'm a nerd.
Yeah.
I watch movies so that I can talk about them on my blog.
And then by the way, can I interview you? That's been my recently of like people I know, like, hey, so cool. Hey, did you want to be on the podcast? Like, do you want to do this? And they're like a lot of people are like, no. And I'm like, I know, it'd be so weird. Be so weird just to talk to you for like, 2 hours. It'd be so weird. But it's a good obsession to have because it's a passion. You know, you have a passion.
Yeah, I mean, I always, like, when I wasn't doing it, I found every time I wasn't doing it, I was unhappy. Like, and it's weird because I felt like I was shirking my responsibility, even though it's not a responsibility. I don't have to be here doing this. But when you end up growing a following, you just feel like, well, they followed me because they thought they were getting one thing.
Yeah.
And I feel like I have to deliver constantly. Yeah. But at the same time, I still need to be a human being. And so I will post just about anything. I don't limit myself so much. I mean, a little bit. I mean, it's interesting. The pandemic's been hard. It's like, how much do you talk about politics? How much do you just take it away and about it? It's a touchy thing. Yeah. But I try, like, I also have to be a human being or I won't post. So it's like, I have to say, like, hey, I just bought this thing I'm really happy about, or like, hey, I'm doing a face mask tonight. Here I am. Like,
right.
Saturday night face mask, whatever. I'll post anything because I'm just like, it's better to hear from me and know that I'm alive and not like, just saying, hey, screw you guys. I don't care that you guys are following. So I try to post, and I do try to, at least if I've posted too much personal stuff, I try to throw something in there that is super relevant and makes sense. And, but I don't know. It's hard because you're always struggling to, like, what's my content this week? What am I posting?
Yeah.
Like, I haven't been updating our Departmental that much. And,
but it's just a constant, but it's our own, milestones. It's our own, things that we are doing and the responsibility you were saying, but it's our own pressure that we're putting on ourselves.
Oh, totally.
We don't actually have deadlines for this.
Yeah. well, I mean, I feel like I always have deadlines with the PR people, but it's like, it's like super different. But other than that, it's like certainly our own pressures of like if I don't get a certain amount of posts up, I'm like, well, I was a failure this month. Or whatever.
Yeah, I know. Well, and listen, I started this, put out 5 episodes, got pregnant. No, did I get pregnant then? Got pregnant, and working. It was the last season of So I only did 5 episodes the first year it was on, and then only since last June have I been able to maintain it as and some months I only did 1. And a lot of interviews I broke up into 2 because I was like, I don't know if people listen that long, which they are, which is great, thank you. And then, breaking it up, I thought, well, at least then I get 2 episodes.
Yeah.
But
absolutely.
Whatever work, I don't know, that's just how I've been able to maintain it. But it is a pressure of no, I've been doing 4 episodes. What if I cut back down to 2? Or I don't want people to get pissed. And I'm like, who's getting pissed? I'm getting pissed at myself.
Yeah, I know.
So yeah.
No, totally. I find although I find people will get pissed off, but it's the stuff that you never ever think about. It's weird stuff. It's I'm just I used maybe I use one word instead of another word, and then you'll get a letter about it. Or, and it's just really, I don't have time for this.
Yeah.
It takes everything just to get
it out there, dude. Just let me have it. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just really, okay, I'll adjust that, Now, I mean, I actually don't mind the corrections, absolutely, as long as you're constructive. But if you're rude, I'm not having it.
Yeah. No, good.
I'm just I'm doing this for free. This is my hobby. This is something I'm doing, but and I'll put the pressure on myself, but it's interesting of what people will complain about.
Well, I gotta say, I've been a fan for a long time. I feel like I've been following you for years. I don't know.
Yeah,
It's all gone so fast, but I do feel like I could, just because it was a little neat, a little window into our world that someone was putting out there. I really enjoyed it. And I
yeah,
think I mean, the rebranding and everything, I was like, oh, they got some money over there. Look, they're all cool and they got like, so
I know. Like,
you fooled me, man. I thought you were like, I thought you were
no,
going to tell me, yeah, I handed it over to this graphic designer and he's been doing all of this. And like,
yeah,
I thought you were going to tell me a whole different story. I am so thoroughly impressed that you're still doing all of this. It's amazing and working. That's crazy.
Well, it's
Congrats.
really hard to do when I'm working, but it's like I'll try to take those breaks and do stuff on the site when I can, and then because I'm lucky that winter tends to be dead here, because then I work on the show.
Mm-hmm.
Or, I mean, not on the show, work on the site. But yeah, I mean, I have people. I've had interns, and they've been good. I do that occasionally, only if you're a student, like follow all the laws and the rules. But and even then, though, it's just like doing research or putting together a little social media image or something that they'll do for me occasionally, but even then it's like very limited. But yeah, I want to get to the point in the next year or two where I'm hiring a writer to help.
Yeah.
Because I have lists of posts that I really want on the site that would be super helpful, and I just don't have the time to do it. Awesome. So I don't mind the interviews. I feel strongly I've got to do them because I know what I want to read when I read an interview, and I want the details. I want to know, how did you do it? And it's not just the why, because a lot of times designers, especially production designers especially, will have these pre-canned responses of how they did it or why they did it or whatever. But I'm like, yeah, okay, but how did you work with your supervising art director or whatever to get that done? And like, I like to know how the meat of it, like what was happening behind the scenes to get that done, and not just the look of it,
right?
Not just the look of it,
right?
Yeah.
No,
but
I'm with you. That's why, like, when I get to interview people who have done movies that have like influenced like older movies, like Jane Muskie was like Raising Arizona, and I was just like, so can you just tell me how did you come up with the wallpaper? Like,
yes,
and I feel like such a dork, but I really want to know, like, what was that? And if it was just a throwaway idea, that's something, but influenced someone, like. I want people to know how much their work is appreciated too, and I think with your site too, you're just appreciating our work and our craft.
Because it's like, I think, the way I look at it is I have various priorities with the site, and the first one is teaching, like, the younger folks how to, like, at least having a base of somewhere to learn from. But the second one, and even though, and I would say that maybe they're both tied, but celebrating what we do, because oftentimes we are not the ones being celebrated.
Right.
Now we get an Oscar, we get and props people will say, no, we don't even get any recognition, and I'm like, absolutely, I totally hear you. I know, like, not, you don't have to get celebrated, but when I've found it frustrating that so many times cinematographers or other keys would get the credit for. I mean, the lighting can be fantastic, but what are they looking at?
What are they lighting? What are you lighting?
People think it's all as is, and it's like even with Baroness, I found that so many people thought that we just walked into the locations that way.
Yeah.
And I was just like, you don't even know the work we put in to get it where it got. Like, so many empty spaces, so many things that were absolutely nothing before we got there. And but people just assume it's such a realistic in some ways. And some of the sketches, some of them look so realistic that they just don't know. They don't know. Yeah.
But that's always a compliment too. That's always like, I thought you filmed that in the hospital. No, that was an empty room. And
exactly. Yeah. So I do take it as a compliment, and but I mean, I think for other people it's like I have always found that like when I was first doing this Googling in like 2008, 2009, that I did see so many times where people were saying, oh, that's amazing cinematography. And I would look at it and I'd be like, but it's flat light and the camera's still not doing anything. But everything in the scene is all production design. And like, that's why it's stunning.
Right.
And so anyway, and then that was part of it. It was just like, okay, let's like celebrate the best work. Like, let's celebrate great work. Let's celebrate all the production design.
Yeah.
You know, because like, that was the other thing is like over the years, just making sure that I put other voices too, because it's not just the Wes Andersons, not just like, you know, like that kind of work, but also beautiful work, beautiful contemporary work. You know, so often we're celebrating the fantasy and the period and whatever, and not looking at great contemporary work, which is actually quite hard to make it look like a real person's home or whatever. You know?
I hate doing people's homes. I hate doing I'm actually like really bad at, I think I'm really bad at homes. Give me like, you know, anything else and I'm in, but like homes is like, I don't know, what are they gonna have? Are they messy? Are they not messy? Would they have a maid? Is that gonna read if they were clean, or is they split? I don't know. You get so into it, but no, contemporary's hard, and I think contemporary is really important years later when somebody's looking for research and they want to go back to your film and see like, well, what was the 90s really like? And you're like, ugh, was that it, or were they reaching?
Well, it's very funny because, you know, every time we try to do period and you have people, I feel like Jack Fisk talked about this, but where you have people just put from the year or the year before, like set decorations from, if it's 1975, then it's all 1975 and all 1974 furniture. It's like, what was this like what kind of home buys all of their furniture all that year?
I know.
You know, in all likelihood, it's staggered from various years from the past 2 decades. You know, and so that's always funny. But it's like, as long as if it's good contemporary work and it has personality and it has little bits of everything, and you know, then people in the future will look back. You know what I've been doing lately is it's so funny, but I know that obviously so many movies are going to take place during the pandemic or whatever.
Oh my god,
like they're like later they'll be like, oh, the pandemic times, and I've been taking so many photographs of all the signage, of all the ways
so smart.
That's so smart. Just the way everything's been divided, the like stickers on the ground, the like everything, because I know that in the future I'm probably going to have to do a movie that takes place during this time.
Probably a couple of them.
More than one, certainly, because it's like when the world was on fire.
You know when like all of a sudden there's like 5 volcano movies come out at the same time, or used to be. But once it'll catch like all the like the 9/11 films that came out, and we're living through a topic.
Well, exactly. Well, and it's like,
wasn't Rose so incredibly sweet and so informative in describing her journey to become a designer? It's so interesting to hear how the workflow has been going in Canada in the past years. I just always think it's busy up there, because I guess I hear like, oh, it went to Canada, went to Vancouver, went to Montreal, like, oh, they're working in Canada. But I think my theory is that Canada got smart in the last decade and stopped being cheaper, and so maybe they don't get as much. I don't know. That's just my little theory. I don't know. If you haven't seen the Art Departmental site, www.artdepartmental.com, you live under a rock. The glossary alone is something that is so informative and funny, because how we have adapted our own little language in our design world. It's really fascinating. She's so giving of how she wants to share and grow our community. I really find her admirable. So I'm very thankful that she was able to speak with me. I gotta tell you really liked hearing Jeff Rosenberg in that last episode, so thank you to so many people who downloaded it. Thank you for listening, reviewing, and rating, because it really does make a difference. So please clickety-click, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 little stars, and review if you got a minute. Thank you. November, I'm bringing it back to basics. So funny. It's like the most downloaded episode that I have of this podcast is the first one. And it kind of sucks because I was so nervous and I'm rambling and I'm talking fast and I'm not comfortable at all. So it's not great. I don't know. I went back and listened to it, but that's what people listen to judge this whole show, which kind of sucks. But anyway, I'm going to do an episode 1 do-over. Try to get that up in our next episode. And then, following that, I do an episode of the positions in the art department and set deck, construction, and props. You're going to need to pay attention to that one, because I break it all down into what everybody does, everybody's responsibility, and what they don't do. So look forward to that in November. I hope you got an earful. I'm Kim Wanup for Decorating Pages. Floating in the fall on your Stogie Floaty. Stogie Floaty Luxury Pool Float. Available now on Amazon, Etsy, and stogiefloaty.com.